A small group of high-level bureaucrats within the State Department and the CIA have been sabotaging the Trump-Pence White House directive on efforts for the release of Pastor Andrew Brunson, an American who's been jailed in Turkey due to his alleged connection to the Gulen Network's failed coup attempt in Turkey in 2016. A senior-level Newsbud source within the State Department provided the following information on the condition of anonymity. There's a small group of high-level bureaucrats within the department who's been sabotaging the White House Turkish government's negotiation process towards the release of Brunson. In an internal memorandum within the department, the group claimed that for our long-term objectives, the continued imprisonment of Brunson would provide more effective ammunition to be used against Erdogan on human rights grounds, while his release would provide little to no gain during this critical stage in Syria. You are basically looking at a group that is operating and acting in direct defiance of the president's directive. Andrew Brunson is an evangelical pastor of the Izmir Resurrection Church, a small Protestant church in Turkey, who was arrested in the purges occurring in the aftermath of the 2016 Turkish coup d'etat attempt. Brunson, who was applying for permanent Turkish residency, having lived there for 23 years, was imprisoned in October of 2016, accused of being a member of the Gulen movement, which the Turkish government considers a terrorist organization. The charges were later amended to include spying and attempting to overthrow the government. To this date, Newsbud has not been able to obtain any formal documents pertaining to evidence in Brunson's arrest and imprisonment. Brunson's case has been called a priority for the Trump White House, with Vice President Mike Pence communicating directly with Brunson's family. The Brunson case has been raised during multiple meetings between President Trump and President Erdogan, with Trump requesting that the Turkish government expeditiously return Brunson to the United States. At a separate event, Turkish President Erdogan virtually offered to send Pastor Brunson home if the American authorities would turn over cleric Fethullah Gulen, who is accused of fomenting the failed coup attempt in July of 2016. We have the White House, both Trump and Pence, eager and willing to work this case out with the Turkish government. The Turkish government appears to share the same objective. Of course, the majority of Americans want to see the pastor released and returned home safely, and do not consider a non-U.S. citizen, radical cleric Gulen, a treasure worth the continuation of Brunson's imprisonment and losing an important U.S. ally. Then who are the entities in Washington, D.C. creating the impediment? According to our source, the defiant group within the State Department is opposed to seeing through the pastor's release, a view directly supported by the CIA. In fact, for its perceived strategic advantage, the CIA would rather see the elimination of the imprisoned pastor while in Turkish jail, whether organic or not. It is about creating a world political theater pinning the murder on the Turkish government, to portray Erdogan as a torturer and murderer of a Christian minister. Look, they have played this script more than a few times in the past. It has always worked. In response to the story, when asked by Newsbud, John Kiriakou, a former CIA analyst, a case officer, and senior investigator for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, made the following observation. Going against the president's directive on efforts in Pastor Brunson's case would constitute a clear case of insubordination. According to Michael Springman, who served as a diplomat in the State Department's Foreign Service with postings in Germany, India, and Saudi Arabia, quote, "This very well may be an ideological rebellion by certain State Department career bureaucrats against Trump and his administration," end quote. When asked about the CIA's alleged stand on this, Kiriakou commented, "The CIA should never weigh in on cases like this. This is and should be outside the CIA's scope of operations. The U.S. government has handled many, and by that I mean many cases of negotiating and seeing through U.S. citizens released from foreign nations' prisons. It is never in the interest of Americans or the U.S. government to have this kind of approach, leaving an American incarcerated. Not only that, if true, this would constitute an egregious violation of Pastor Brunson's human rights by the State Department. If I were his attorneys, I'd take the case to the U.S. Congress and demand an expedited investigation." Mr. Springman, based on his career-long experiences with the CIA while serving as a diplomat, stated, "Look, State Department and the CIA are evil twins. Siamese twins joined at the hip. Am I appalled? Yes. But I can't say I'm shocked or surprised that the State Department, with the CIA setting the tone, would readily sacrifice an American, in this case Pastor Brunson, jailed in Turkey, and disregard Americans' best interests for its own ulterior and dark motives. While the mainstream media coins this case a pawn in the spat between America and Turkey, when delved deeper, the case seems to be neither about Trump-Pence White House nor Erdogan's administration, nor the interests of Americans or Turks. It appears the main impediment to facilitating the pastor's release is a small, special interest motivated rogue group within the State Department and the CIA, in defiance of not only a presidential directive, but also in violation of human rights. Newsbud will continue coverage of this case in the coming days. Go to newsbud.com and read the full article by Newsbud's founder and editor, Sibel Edmonds.